Justine sat on the edge of her bed, her gaze fixed on the half-open suitcase at her feet. Cold air seeped through the cracks in the windows, bringing with it a heavy silence that filled the modest room. The walls, worn with time, seemed to close in on her, reminding her of every corner of her childhood in that house. But now, everything had changed. How could they do this? Justine thought, her mind invaded by the bitter memory of the previous night. Her father, Michel, and her mother, Claire, had looked at her with a mixture of disapproval and disappointment as she confessed her pregnancy. Her father's words echoed in her ears. "You are irresponsible, Justine. We can't have you here with that shame." Tears began to roll down her cheeks as she carefully folded a t-shirt and placed it in the suitcase. Each garment was a silent witness to her life so far, a life that was falling apart with every object she kept. "I was always a good daughter," she told herself, trying to find comfort in the memories of the days when she took care of her parents, cleaned the house, and paid the bills. The creak of the wooden floor under her feet brought her out of her thoughts. She slowly got up and walked to the closet to get more clothes. The coldness of the floor seeped through her slippers, intensifying the feeling of abandonment that enveloped her. Each step was a reminder of the weight she carried not only in her body, but also in her heart. Finally, with her suitcase full, Justine stopped in front of the mirror. Her reflection showed a tired woman with red eyes and pale skin. "I must be strong," she thought as she gently caressed her bulging belly. "For you, my baby, I will. No matter how difficult it is, I will find a way to get ahead." The sound of the bedroom door opening made her turn abruptly. Claire entered, avoiding her daughter's gaze. "It's time for you to go, Justine," she said coldly. "We can't keep putting up with this." Justine nodded, unable to argue. She took the suitcase and, with one last glance at the room that had been her refuge for so many years, walked out into the hallway. Her footsteps echoed through the empty house, each echo a beat of farewell. Upon reaching the front door, Michel was waiting. He didn't say a word, just opened the door and stepped aside to let her pass. Justine stepped out into the cold night, feeling the icy wind hit her face. She paused for a moment, looking back, waiting for a sign of remorse, a word of comfort. But there was nothing. The door closed with a thud, leaving her alone in the darkness. She walked through the deserted streets, the weight of the suitcase pulling on her arm and the weight of despair pulling on her soul. "I have nowhere to go," she thought, but her resolve did not waver. "I'll find a place for us," she promised herself as she caressed her belly again. The moon shone faintly between the clouds, illuminating her path to an uncertain future. Justine knew the road would be hard, but she also knew she had to keep going. For her son, for the love she already felt for him, she would not let despair overcome her. She stopped in front of a cheap boarding house, the neon sign flickering with a dim glow. She entered and asked for a room, feeling the curious stares of the few guests who were watching her. She climbed the stairs to a small, dingy room, but it was a refuge, a place where she could begin to rebuild her life. As she lay down on the bed, fatigue finally overcame her. She closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of rest, knowing that at dawn she would have to start over. But for now, she clung to the little flame of hope that burned within her. "We will survive," she murmured, hugging her belly. "We will survive." The room was bathed in a comforting silence, broken only by the whisper of the wind outside. Justine let herself be lulled to sleep, her thoughts still revolving around her son and the future that awaited them. The night progressed slowly, enveloping her fears and dreams in a cloak of unspoken promises. Justine opened the door to her new apartment, a small haven in a different neighborhood in Paris. The smell of fresh paint filled the air, mingling with the dust that floated in the rays of sunlight filtering through the windows. The place was modest, but it was hers. Every corner, every detail, now belonged to her and her unborn baby. Carefully, she placed the suitcase on the floor and began to unpack. Every object she took out brought back memories of her old life, a life she had left behind forever. As she pulled out a photo from her childhood, Justine looked at it closely before placing it on a shelf. It's time to start over, she thought, trying to hold on to the hope that still lingered in her heart. Hours passed as she tidied and cleaned the small space. The wooden floor creaked under her feet, and the rubbing of the mop against the worn planks was the only sound in the silent room. Justine moved slowly, feeling the weight of her pregnancy in every movement, but the determination in her eyes did not waver. For a moment, she paused in front of the window, letting the warm afternoon sun bathe her face. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the fresh, new air of her surroundings. This is just the beginning, she told herself, gently stroking her bulging belly. Later, she went for a walk around the neighborhood. The trees lining the street shaded the sidewalks, and the bustle of the city seemed strangely comforting. She passed a small baby clothes store and, without thinking twice, went in. The pastel colors of the dresses and little outfits enveloped her in a feeling of warmth and hope. She stopped in front of a small white dress, simple but beautiful. She took it in her hands, feeling the softness of the fabric between her fingers. She held it against her chest, and a bittersweet smile spread across her face. "This is for you, my love," she whispered, imagining her baby wearing that garment. Back in her apartment, Justine sat down in an old chair by the window, holding the dress. Her thoughts flew towards the future, an uncertain but hopeful future. She wondered what life would be like for her son, what challenges they would face together, and how she would find the strength to overcome each obstacle. "There is so much to do," she thought, letting her fingers caress the soft fabric of the dress. "But I am not alone. I have you." Fear and hope mingled in her heart, creating a whirlwind of emotions that she could barely contain. But in the midst of it all, Justine's resolve remained unwavering. She got up and hung the dress on a small hook on the wall, a symbol of her new life, of the promise of a better future. With each small step, she was building a home, a place where her son would grow up surrounded by love and security. Justine continued unpacking and cleaning well into the night. The sunlight faded, giving way to the soft lighting of a table lamp that cast cozy shadows on the walls. She collapsed into bed, exhausted but satisfied, and let fatigue overcome her. That night, as the city lights flickered through the curtains, Justine dreamed of a future filled with hope. She dreamed of laughter, the sound of little feet running around the apartment, and moments of pure happiness that she would share with her son. The new day brought with it a renewed sense of purpose. Justine woke up early, ready to face the challenges life would throw her way. She opened the windows, letting the sunlight flood the room, and prepared for a day filled with new opportunities. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as Justine sat down at the table with a steaming mug in her hands. She looked at her surroundings with a mixture of pride and hope, knowing that, although the road would be difficult, she was determined to build a better life for herself and her son. Throughout the day, Justine dedicated herself to continuing to fix up her home, every movement carefully calculated to make the apartment a welcoming place. She felt that every little effort brought her closer to the life she wanted for her son. A life full of love, security, and opportunity. The future was uncertain, but Justine knew that with determination and love, she could face any challenge. As she held the little white dress again, a sense of peace and resolution washed over her. "We are going to make it," she whispered, stroking her belly. "Together, we will overcome everything." The park near Justine's house was a place of tranquility, although the chilly autumn air made it less welcoming. Justine used to walk there to clear her head, and that afternoon, as the wind whispered through the fallen leaves, she decided to sit on a bench to rest. The wooden bench was rough to the touch, with splinters threatening to dig into her coat. As she surveyed the landscape, her gaze fell on a man staggering toward her. His clothes were dirty and torn, and his face showed the signs of misery and exhaustion. It was evident that he had spent a long time on the streets. He sat on the opposite end of the bench, his head down, not noticing Justine's presence at first. Justine watched him for a moment, feeling a deep empathy. She knew what it was like to feel lost and hopeless. "Hello," she said softly, trying not to scare him. "Would you like a sandwich?" The man looked up, startled. His eyes reflected gratitude, but also disbelief. "Really? Would you give me your food?" he asked hoarsely. "Yes," Justine replied, taking the sandwich out of her purse and holding it out to him. "It's all I have, but I want you to have it." He took the sandwich with trembling hands, his eyes welling up. "Thank you," he murmured, before biting into it ravenously. After a few seconds, he stopped and looked at Justine. "My name is Gil," he said. "I don't know how to thank you for this." "I'm glad to help, Gil," Justine replied with a smile. "What happened to you?" Gil sighed, putting the sandwich down for a moment. "Months ago, I got lost after a trip with my family. I don't know how I got here. Since then, I've been wandering, trying to find my way back, but without success." Justine felt a lump in her throat. "It must have been very hard for you," she said, trying not to show too much pity that might seem condescending. "It has been," Gil admitted. "I have been hungry, cold, and I have lost hope many times. But your gesture has reminded me that there is still good in the world." "We all need help sometimes," Justine said, looking at the half-eaten sandwich in his hands. "I've been through some hard times myself. I'm pregnant and alone, trying to start over in this neighborhood." Gil nodded slowly, his expression softening. "It's amazing how life can change from one moment to the next. Thank you for reminding me that all is not lost." The wind blew stronger, making Justine wrap her coat tighter around herself. "We should go somewhere warmer," she suggested. "I know of a nearby help center where you could spend the night." Gil looked at her, hesitating for a moment before nodding. "Thank you, Justine. I don't know how I can repay you for this." "You don't need to repay me," she replied with a smile. "Sometimes we just need a little kindness to keep going." They walked together towards the help center, the silence between them comfortable. Justine reflected on her own life as she helped Gil. She thought about her baby and the future that awaited them. The determination to survive and thrive grew stronger with each step they took. They reached the center, a modest but welcoming building. Justine spoke to the manager, explaining Gil's situation. They assured her that he could stay and receive the help he needed. Gil turned to Justine, an expression of deep gratitude on his face. "I don't know how to thank you for this," he repeated. "You've done more for me than you know." Justine smiled, gently touching her belly. "Sometimes a small act of kindness can change everything," she said. "Take care, Gil. I hope you find what you're looking for." He nodded, his eyes shining with new hope. "And I hope your baby grows up surrounded by the same kindness you have shown today. Thank you, Justine." They said their goodbyes, and Justine watched as Gil entered the center, feeling lighter. The park, the cold wind, and the falling night no longer seemed so gloomy. She had made a difference in someone's life, and that gave her the strength to face her own challenges. Justine was in her apartment, a cold and quiet morning. She had made herself a cup of tea and was sitting at the small kitchen table, watching the sun's rays filtering through the curtains. The serenity of the moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. She got up, her heart racing, wondering who it could be so early. As she opened the door, she found herself facing a distinguished-looking man dressed in a dark coat and an elegant scarf. His blue eyes watched her with a mixture of gratitude and determination. Justine?" he asked, his voice soft but firm. "Yes, that's me," she replied, a little confused. "My name is Gerard. I am Gil's father. Can we talk?" Justine nodded, stepping aside to let him in. Gerard entered the small apartment, looking around curiously at the modest but cozy surroundings. She invited him to sit down and offered him a cup of tea, which he accepted with a grateful smile. "I don't know how to thank you for what you did for my son," Gerard began, taking a sip of his tea. "Gil told me how you gave him that sandwich when he needed it most. That small act of kindness gave him back the hope and strength to come home." Justine blushed slightly, uncomfortable with the praise. "It was nothing, really. I just did what anyone would do." Gerard looked at her seriously. "No, Justine, you did something extraordinary. Many people would have passed by, but you didn't. That's why I'm here, to thank you and to offer you my help." He took an envelope from his coat and placed it on the table. Justine looked at it uncertainly, not daring to touch it. "What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "It's financial assistance," Gerard replied. "I know you've been through some difficult times, and I want to make sure you don't want for anything, especially with a baby on the way." Justine took the envelope with trembling hands. The rustle of paper as she opened it filled the room. Inside, she found a check with a considerable sum. Her eyes widened in surprise and disbelief. "I can't accept this," she said, handing the check back. "It's too much." Gerard shook his head, insisting, "Please take it. It's the least I can do for someone who saved my son. Think of your future and your babies." Justine looked at the check again, feeling a mix of relief and inner conflict. The possibility of having a better life for her and her son was tempting, but the idea of accepting such a large sum of money made her uncomfortable. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the park where she had met Gil. She remembered her own struggle and the constant fear of the future. Finally, she took a deep breath and turned to Gerard. "Okay, I will accept your generosity, but only because I know that this will give us a chance to have a better life." Gerard smiled, relieved. "Thank you, Justine. I'm sure you'll make good decisions with this money. If you ever need anything else, don't hesitate to contact me." They said goodbye with a warm handshake. Gerard's hand was firm and warm, conveying a sense of security. Justine accompanied him to the door, grateful for his kindness and the unexpected help. Later, Justine went for a walk. Her steps led her to a nearby boutique, where she used to spend time window shopping. The smell of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her as she entered. She greeted the owner, Madame Lefebvre, a kind woman with refined manners. "Justine, dear, what a joy to see you," said Madame Lefebvre, approaching with a smile. "How are you?" "I'm fine, thank you," replied Justine, still processing the day's events. "In fact, there's something I wanted to tell you." She briefly explained her encounter with Gerard and the financial help she had received. Madame Lefebvre listened attentively, nodding in understanding. "That's wonderful, Justine. This is a unique opportunity for you and your baby. I'm sure you'll know how to make the most of it." Justine smiled, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. "Yes, I hope so. It has given me new hope for the future." They spent the afternoon talking about plans and dreams, while Justine enjoyed a cup of hot coffee. The rich aroma and warmth of the place provided her with a sense of comfort and renewal. As she walked home, Justine reflected on the unexpected turn her life had taken. Gerard's help not only offered her financial security, but also the opportunity to build a future full of hope and possibilities. The morning sun illuminated Justine's new apartment, a spacious and bright space in a better neighborhood. The freshly painted walls gave off a fresh, clean scent, filling the air with a promise of new beginnings. Justine moved around the room, opening boxes and taking out her belongings, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Every object she put in its place gave her a sense of belonging, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Upon entering the room that would be the baby's nursery, Justine paused for a moment, contemplating the empty space. "This will be perfect," she thought, imagining her son growing up in an environment filled with love and security. She began to unpack the little baby clothes, each one softer and more adorable than the last. She placed a white outfit on the changing table and stroked it gently, feeling the softness of the fabric under her fingers. The vision of her son wearing those clothes filled her with an indescribable warmth. As she worked, her thoughts turned to Madame Lefebvre and the boutique. It had been fortunate to find a job there, surrounded by kind people and in an environment that she liked. The boutique was a lovely place, always filled with the bustle of satisfied customers and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafting from the adjacent cafe. Justine prepared for her first day of work with enthusiasm. Upon arriving, she was greeted by Madame Lefebvre with a warm smile. "Justine, welcome!" the woman exclaimed, opening her arms in a welcoming gesture. "We're so happy to have you with us." "Thank you, Madame Lefebvre," replied Justine, returning the smile. "I'm very excited to start." The day went by quickly. Justine familiarized herself with the workings of the store, organizing clothes and assisting customers. The boutique was full of life. The sound of conversations and laughter filled the air, creating a vibrant and welcoming atmosphere. As she hung some dresses on a rack, Justine observed a mother with her little daughter choosing clothes. The little girl laughed, excited to try on the new dresses, and Justine couldn't help but smile. "Someday, my son will be here too, full of joy," she thought hopefully. During her break, Justine sat down at a table in the back of the store, enjoying a cup of hot coffee. The rich, warm aroma of the coffee provided her with unexpected comfort. She looked around, watching her new co-workers busy with their tasks, all of them friendly and welcoming. Madame Lefebvre joined her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You did a great job today, Justine. I'm impressed with your dedication and enthusiasm." "Thank you, Madame Lefebvre. This job means a lot to me," Justine replied sincerely. The older woman nodded, looking at her with understanding. "I know you've been through difficult times, but here you will have a place to grow and thrive. We are here to support you in whatever you need." Justine felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you, really. That means a lot to me." When her workday ended, Justine walked back to her new home, feeling a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. The neighborhood streets were quiet, with shady trees and well-kept houses that gave it a cozy feel. Upon reaching her apartment, she allowed herself a moment to contemplate her surroundings, grateful for the opportunity to start over. She entered the apartment and went to the baby's room, continuing with the decoration. She put up soft, colorful curtains and arranged the stuffed animals on a shelf next to the crib. The room began to take shape, becoming a warm and welcoming place, full of love and hope. As she worked, her thoughts returned to her baby. "This is all for you," she thought, feeling a growing confidence in her ability to offer him a better life. Every little detail she added to the room was a promise of a future filled with love and care. Night came, and Justine sat in the living room, enjoying the silence and peace of her new home. She observed the empty boxes piled up in a corner and smiled, knowing that she had taken a big step towards a better future. "We can do this," she murmured, caressing her belly. "Together, we will overcome any challenge." With that determination, Justine prepared to rest, knowing that the road ahead would be long, but also full of possibilities. Her new life was just beginning, and with each passing day, her confidence and hope grew, fueled by the unconditional love she felt for her son. The morning sun was just beginning to illuminate the streets of Paris when Justine opened the doors of the boutique. The comforting aroma of freshly baked bread from the bakery next door wafted through the air, mingling with the smell of coffee coming from the cafe across the street. The store was still quiet, but Justine knew that in a few hours it would be full of customers. Madame Lefebvre arrived shortly after, greeting Justine with a warm smile. "Good morning, Justine. How are you feeling today?" "Good morning, Madame Lefebvre. I feel good, thank you. A little tired, but ready to start the day," Justine replied, placing some dresses in the window display. "Remember not to overwork yourself," said Madame Lefebvre, her voice full of motherly concern. "You have to take care of yourself and your baby." "I know, but I want to make sure everything is perfect here," Justine said, smiling slightly. "This job means a lot to me." Throughout the day, Justine faced the challenges of balancing her pregnancy with the demands of work. Every step she took in the boutique felt heavier than the last, and the pain in her feet increased with each passing hour. However, her resolve did not waver. She knew that this was all for her son and for the future she was building for both of them. During a break, she sat in the back of the store, enjoying a glass of cold water. Madame Lefebvre joined her, carrying 2 freshly baked croissants. "Here, Justine, you need a break," she said, handing her one of the croissants. "How's it going?" "It's a little tough, but I'm okay," replied Justine, grateful for the gesture. "Thanks for always looking out for me." Madame Lefebvre smiled. "You're like a daughter to me, Justine. I want to make sure you're okay. Remember, you're not alone in this." The bond between the two grew stronger with each conversation, with each moment of mutual support. The shared laughter and heartfelt advice from Madame Lefebvre became a constant source of strength for Justine. As the day progressed, the bustle of customers filled the boutique. Justine moved between the aisles, assisting shoppers, recommending garments, and ensuring everyone felt welcome. Despite the fatigue, a sense of satisfaction filled her. She was managing to balance her work and her pregnancy, and each small victory gave her more confidence. The pain in her feet intensified by the end of the workday. Justine collapsed into a chair, sighing in relief when she was finally able to take off her shoes. Madame Lefebvre approached and offered her a cup of hot tea. "You did very well today, Justine. I'm proud of you," she said, sitting down next to her. "Thank you, Madame Lefebvre. I couldn't do it without your support," replied Justine, taking a sip of tea. The warm liquid comforted her, easing the exhaustion a little. Upon arriving home, Justine collapsed on the couch. She looked at the little baby clothes she had hung in the baby's room and smiled. Every day her confidence grew, and each challenge overcome brought her closer to her goal. Her thoughts turned to her son, imagining the future she was building for him. "This is for you," she thought, stroking her belly. "Every step, every sacrifice is to give you a better life." As she closed her eyes, the distant sound of city traffic and the soft murmur of wind through the windows enveloped her in a sense of peace. She knew there were still many challenges ahead, but she also knew she had the strength and support to face them. The next day, Justine woke up with a renewed determination. She prepared for another day at the boutique, ready to face any obstacle that came her way. She knew that with Madame Lefebvre's help and her own resilience, she could overcome any difficulty. The aroma of freshly baked bread greeted her again as she opened the doors of the store. Justine smiled, feeling that each day was a step closer to the life she had dreamed of for her son. Justine was in the boutique, carefully arranging a row of new dresses, when a sharp pang of pain shot through her abdomen. She stopped, breathing deeply and leaning on the counter to keep from losing her balance. Madame Lefebvre, who was watching from the cash register, approached quickly. "Are you all right, Justine?" she asked with concern. Justine nodded, but her face showed a grimace of pain. "I think the baby is coming," she said between gasps. Madame Lefebvre wasted no time. "Marie, call an ambulance!" she ordered one of the employees, who rushed to comply with the instruction. Then she took Justine's hand. "Don't worry, dear. We'll get you to the hospital right away." The boutique team reacted quickly, creating an environment of support and care. Within minutes, Justine was in the ambulance, her breathing ragged and her mind flooded with thoughts and emotions. Each contraction was a reminder that the moment she had waited so long for was finally here. Upon arriving at the hospital, the sterile air and the sound of medical monitors created an atmosphere of controlled urgency. Justine was taken to a delivery room where a team of doctors and nurses greeted her with professionalism and warmth. "Take a deep breath, Justine," said the doctor, a woman with a kind face. "Everything will be fine." Between the pain and the effort, Justine clung to the hand of a nurse, trying to focus on the instructions they were giving her. Each contraction was a challenge, but also a step closer to meeting her baby. Sweat beaded on her forehead and tears mingled with her determination. "All this is for you," thought Justine, focused on her son. "I will bring you into this world, no matter what." The hours passed slowly, each one filled with pain and effort. The room was filled with the sound of controlled breathing, murmurs of support, and the constant beeping of monitors. Justine was at her limit, but the thought of holding her baby in her arms gave her the energy to keep going. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she felt one last contraction, more intense than all the others. With a final cry of effort and determination, she heard the most beautiful sound she had ever heard, her baby's first cry. Tears welled up in Justine's eyes, now from pure joy and relief. The nurse placed the newborn in her arms, and Justine looked at her son with a mixture of wonder and indescribable love. The little creature snuggled against her, cooing softly. The outside world disappeared, leaving only Justine and her baby in a perfect moment. She felt the soft weight of the newborn against her chest, the warmth of his skin, and the delicate, new fragrance of his body. The baby's tiny fingers closed around one of hers, a small but powerful gesture. "Welcome to the world, my love," Justine whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise I will do everything I can to give you a life full of love and happiness. As she watched her son, Justine reflected on everything she had gone through to get to this moment. She remembered the lonely nights, the tears of despair, but also the acts of kindness and support she had received. Every step of the way had prepared her for this moment, for this miracle she held in her arms. The doctor approached, smiling tenderly. "Justine, you were incredible. Congratulations, you have a beautiful baby." Justine looked up, grateful. "Thank you. I couldn't have done it without all of you." The medical team withdrew, leaving Justine and her baby in a moment of quiet connection. The room was a haven of peace, the air filled with the soft murmur of the newborn and the steady beat of the heart monitor. The window let in the soft light of dusk, bathing everything in a golden glow. As she cradled her son, Justine felt a wave of hope and strength. She knew there would still be challenges, but she also knew that she was not alone. With the support of Madame Lefebvre, her new friends, and her own determination, she was ready to face the future. "We're going to be okay," she said softly, more to herself than to the baby. "Together, we will overcome anything." The baby, as if understanding her words, snuggled closer to her, emitting a happy sigh. Justine closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of rest, knowing that the journey was just beginning, but that with her son by her side, she had all the strength she needed to move forward. The gentle spring breeze caressed Justine's face as she pushed her baby stroller through the streets of Paris. Several weeks had passed since she left the hospital, and life was beginning to return to a peaceful and hopeful rhythm. With each passing day, the idea of opening her own boutique grew stronger in her mind. Justine had decided to call her shop Petit Miracle in honor of her baby daughter, who had transformed her life in unimaginable ways. With Gerard's financial assistance, she was ready to make her dream a reality. She had found the perfect location in a charming corner of the neighborhood, with large windows that let in the sunlight and a cozy space to display the baby clothes she loved so much. Upon arriving at the premises, Justine took out a shiny key and opened the door. Sunlight flooded the store, illuminating the freshly painted walls in a soft pastel hue. Justine smiled, feeling a wave of emotion and pride as she looked at the empty space that would soon be filled with color and life. "This is where it all begins, my love," she murmured, looking at her sleeping daughter in the stroller. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. Justine immersed herself in the preparation of the boutique, working with designers and contractors to bring her vision to life. Every detail mattered, from the lightwood shelves to the hangers adorned with colored ribbons. The aroma of fresh paint and new wood filled the air, mingling with the sound of hammers and drills. Justine oversaw every step of the process, making sure everything was perfect. Her hands caressed the soft fabrics of the tiny garments, imagining the babies who would wear them. One day, as she was organizing a set of dresses on a shelf, Madame Lefebvre entered the store with a broad smile. "Justine, dear, this is wonderful," she exclaimed, looking around in admiration. "You have done an incredible job." "Thank you, Madame Lefebvre," Justine replied, feeling the warmth of her friend's words. "I couldn't have done it without your support." Madame Lefebvre gave her an affectionate hug. "I am very proud of you. This place will be a success. I know it." Finally, opening day arrived. Justine woke up early, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Dressed in an elegant outfit, she headed to the store with her daughter in her arms. Upon arriving, she saw a small group of people gathered outside, waiting for the opening. "Welcome to Petit Miracle," Justine said with a smile, opening the doors wide. The first customers entered, and the store quickly filled with life. The vibrant colors of the baby clothes created a cheerful and welcoming atmosphere. Customers strolled through the aisles, touching the soft fabrics and admiring the details carefully chosen by Justine. "This store is lovely," said a young mother, holding a small dress. "It's exactly what we needed in the neighborhood." "Thank you," replied Justine, feeling a wave of pride. "I hope you find something special for your little one." Meanwhile, Gerard arrived at the store, watching the hustle and bustle with a satisfied smile. He approached Justine, who was busy serving a customer. "Congratulations, Justine," he said, shaking her hand warmly. "This is just the beginning of something big." "Thank you, Gerard. It wouldn't have been possible without your help," she replied, gratitude in her voice. The store continued to fill with people, and Justine couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for the support she had received. Madame Lefebvre, Gerard, and the neighborhood community had been instrumental in making her dream a reality. As the hours passed, Justine took a moment to look around. Customers chatted happily, exchanging laughter and compliments about the store. Sunbeams streamed through the windows, filling the space with a warm, golden light. "This is our home now," thought Justine, feeling a deep satisfaction. "A place where my daughter will grow up surrounded by love and opportunity." As the afternoon progressed, customers continued to arrive, and the store remained full of life. Justine, despite her tiredness, couldn't help but smile. Every little detail, every effort she had made, had paid off. At the end of the day, as the last light of dusk faded, Justine closed the doors of the boutique with a sense of accomplishment and hope. As she cradled her daughter in her arms, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she would always have the strength and love to face them. The crisp autumn air filled the park, carrying with it the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant murmur of children playing. Justine strolled slowly, pushing her son Émile's stroller. The trees, tinged with red and gold hues, created a picturesque setting, full of life and serenity. They reached the bench where she had met Gil months before. Justine sat down, allowing Émile to explore the world from the safety of his stroller. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deeply the clean, fresh air, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Justine, is that you?" asked a familiar voice. She opened her eyes and saw Gil, but he was not the same man she had met before. Now he was clean, well-dressed, and with a look of tranquility in his eyes. He approached with a smile, and Justine felt a surge of joy to see him so changed. "Gil, what a joy to see you like this," said Justine, getting up to hug him. "How have you been?" "I've been well, thanks to you," Gil replied, returning the hug. "I wanted to find you to thank you in person. Your kindness changed my life." Justine smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "I only did what I felt I had to do. I'm glad to see you so well." They sat down on the bench, watching as Émile fidgeted in his stroller. Gil looked at the little one with a smile. "Is this your son?" "Yes. His name is Émile," said Justine proudly. "He is my greatest joy." Gil leaned toward the stroller, making a funny face that made Émile laugh. "He's a beautiful boy, Justine. I'm sure he will have a great future with a mother like you." They spent some time talking about their lives. Gil told her how he had found shelter and had gradually rebuilt his life. He had gotten a job and was regaining his self-confidence. Justine told him about her boutique, Petit Miracle, and how she had found a purpose and a community that supported her. "It's amazing how one small act of kindness can have such a big impact," Gil said, looking at Justine with admiration. "Your generosity not only helped me, but it has also created a place for many other people Justine nodded, reflecting on his words. She felt a deep gratitude for all the opportunities she had received and for the community she had built around her. Every person she had met, every small act of support had been a brick in the foundation of her new life. "Sometimes we don't realize the power we have to change things," replied Justine, "but we can all make a difference, no matter how small." As they talked, the park filled with the sound of children's laughter and birdsong. Justine looked around, seeing the beauty in every detail. The vibrant leaves falling gently, the sun shining through the branches, and the palpable joy in the air. "This place has always brought me peace," said Justine, sighing with satisfaction. "It reminds me that, no matter the challenges, there is always hope and beauty in the world." Gil nodded, looking at Justine with respect. "You have a wisdom that many seek their whole lives. I feel fortunate to have met you." Justine smiled, feeling a deep connection with Gil. She knew that their encounter had not been a coincidence, but rather a testament to the power of kindness and resilience. As they said goodbye, they promised to keep in touch and support each other on their respective paths. Upon returning home, Justine felt a renewed sense of purpose. She entered her apartment, which was now a home filled with love and hope. She looked at Emile, who was sleeping peacefully in his stroller, and felt a wave of emotion. "This is all for you, my love," she murmured, leaning down to kiss her son's forehead. "Together, we will build a future full of possibilities." Justine sat by the window, watching the sun set, bathing the city in a golden light. She reflected on her journey, from the dark days of uncertainty to the moments of triumph and joy. Every step had been a lesson, every challenge an opportunity to grow. "We have achieved so much, and there is still so much to come," she thought, feeling a deep peace. The distant sounds of traffic and the laughter of neighbors filled the air, reminding her that she was not alone. She had built a strong and supportive community, and with them, she knew she could face anything. With a heart full of gratitude and hope, Justine closed her eyes, allowing herself a moment of rest. She knew the future was bright, and with each new day she was more prepared to face the challenges and joys that life had to offer. And so concludes our heartwarming story of Justine and her little miracle. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like it and share it with your loved ones. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more inspiring and moving stories like this one. Remember, every little act of kindness can change the world. Until next time, friends, and take care.